does somebody want to just give, since I wasn't here, so for my sake and review's sake, give a rehash of what you understood from last Sunday school? All right, Jeff, why don't you give us a rehash of, yeah, and I know a lot of us, well, primarily you and I, and some people in our church, we talk about footnotes all the time, how we say something and we feel like we need to footnote it because so somebody doesn't think we're going too far over here or whatever. So part of me hears that when you talk about, hey, well, activity, you could go too much on the activity side, which I absolutely agree with. But part of me wants to say, hey, the whole context of talking about activity in relation to this, remember the wheel or the tire thing that I think oh yeah, that's this right here. In talking about, I wrote dog, returning to its vomit, the normal human old DNA in ruts of thinking, ruts of bad thinking, ruts of bad activity, and how that applies in any and every kind of scenario. And so the context in which we are talking about this, and we're using kind of a blatant example of a human problem. I mean, you could use addiction as a blatant example. But again, I say addiction, that's an outward activity that somebody is doing, but it can be the same thing with a person's thinking and where they go in their thinking in regards to depression or anxiety or anger or that kind of thing. So you get into that rut of thinking, rut of activity, and then we are talking about how God has created this new way of living within the church context, within relationships. So we were talking about this comprehensive idea of, hey, we have this relationship with God, relationship with others, in which God has now he is helping us move into, and relating in this way combined with activity helps. And remember what these things are? This isn't a hyphen. Yeah, right. That's exactly what it was. It was whatever, a stick, something that helps disrupt this habitual way of thinking, acting, whatever. Okay, so that was the context of all of this. So you went to some of the Proverbs that talked about, what specific things in Proverbs say. Yeah, and that's how I wanted to isolate activity. Sure, we can talk about the other end of activity and how, according to our old DNA, we can use activity now to to do exactly what we're trying to avoid or hoping for. But what we're talking about in this context is, in the context of relationship, in the context of truth, in information and the person of Christ, we are actually talking about proactive activity within the church that is helpful to disrupt this and expose this and all of that. So that's so. But again, that's why I'm trying to go. Okay, wait a minute. We don't go there. I mean, we can go there later, but try not to get distracted by that. We're just trying to talk about the healthy aspect of activity. Okay. Because yes, you're right, but that's not. We're trying to just keep it right here and just talking about the benefits of the activity, not that just we're trying to create, but what God is saying. When we talk about Ephesians, when God is talking about all the members working together according to its, its part, and it has to do with love of God and love of other people. What is that? As we're talking about serving each other and this idea of activity of some sort, because that's kind of where Dave's kind of moving to. I don't want to separate this from this, so that's where I'm saying, when we're talking about activity right now, where I'm trying to keep it in too, is that what you're talking about right here. So you said dynamic action. I know Dave's brought up the idea of organic, and so maybe talking about activity sounds like it's something extra Whereas we're talking, so you're saying dynamic action. If it's helpful for some people, we can call it activity. I guess the reason, well, there's really no thought out reason I'm saying activity or action. It's just that I think what I'm realizing more and more is there is this, I think it is helpful, especially as a church, to think of this in a proactive, purposeful way. Okay, remember the whole context of this is this right here. So we're using ruts of thinking, and we're using this specific example of like people that I'm working with. Let's say addiction. Okay, so this person is recognizing that this is where they're at, or this is what happens to them when they go home, they're alone, or they're with their family. They're triggered by whatever triggers them. They're anxious, they're mad, and it just rolls in the normal habitual way of thinking. And this person is recognizing, yes, this is what's happening, and I don't know what to do with it. And this is going on, and this is going on in the sense of relationship, like with me or with somebody, with other people. And they're saying, I want help, I need help, because I don't know what to do with this. And so now I'm saying, from the purposeful, proactive standpoint, is now I'm helping actually say, hey, let's try to do something, that then might have the opportunity to create this scenario. Now, with our theology, or with my theology, I'm not doing that saying it's going to save him, fix him, deliver him from his addiction. None of that. To me, and I think that's a great way of saying this dynamic action. So now what I'm doing with this plan is helping facilitate everything that we've talked about. It's continuing, it's coming alongside, it's bearing another person's burden to where they're saying, help me, I don't know what to do. And I especially don't know what to do when I'm sitting at home and stewing in my juices. Yeah, because again, we talked about this a few weeks ago. The overwhelming, or the main characteristics of this and what happens with this is, again, it's the main characteristics of autonomy. So it's isolation, withdrawal. Is that how you spell that? And it's myself. I can hear that, with my 1.5-year-old. That I can hear the 1.5-year-old saying that, by myself. So these are the overwhelming characteristics. So now, as a church, as in relationship, what you just said, none of it's in isolation from this. So now we're going to say, you know how we get help? You know how I know that God is telling us we get help? Is this. So now we're going to come alongside, I'm going to come alongside, and I'm going to help, again, with them saying, I want help and I believe I need help. I'm going to go, whatever that looks like, I'm going to go, and we're going to, we're going to take them from isolation, withdrawal, and by myself to what? To relationship. To relationship, and this dynamic action within that relationship helps pull them from this. That's what this is. And it provides perspective. All the different stuff that we've talked about, when you now enter, I'm no longer hiding, I'm exposed, I'm in relationship, I'm being encouraged. I mean, the dynamic, of course, when I was talking about activity with certain things, with certain counseling things, I say counseling things, but every one of you this applies to, okay? So that's why I kept on talking about chopping wood. I mean, you remember why Jeff has heard me say this 1,000 times. Why do I say chopping wood, especially with men? Gives you meaning and purpose. Now we're going the opposite way of, no, yeah. Again, what happens here typically? I mean, with this happens. And look, this is what I'm seeing is the bane of our society now, just from a societal problem. Guess what men do? Sit around and do nothing. Talk philosophy at the gates while the women work. I was just on the way in this morning. I heard, I had it on an AM station, and it was some like farm guy, and he was talking about farming, and he had a lady on who was had a couple of books of some sort, and this guy was actually, and he's an older man, farmer type guy. You would think, more of, me man, me farmer, woman in cooking. This guy was like, women are far better managers than men. And he was talking about, the different things. Anyways, guess what I'm seeing is the problem of men these days. And maybe it's always been that way. I don't know. Men are not distracted by activity. Well, not like profitable activity, okay? They have a problem with, and this is where we get into the Proverbs, where we talk about the foolish man. We talk about the simple man. Is this attraction to laziness and idle time. I'm going down a tangent now, but this isn't even necessarily this was just supposed to be a kind of a rehash of what Jeff was doing last week. Yeah. So that's part of why I just put this here. It's actually exactly what I thought of when you said that. So first of all, I would say, so you're saying this person is recognizing that they need help. They say that they want help. Ronnie and we talked about this a few months ago with talking about there is this dynamic. Well, remember what we talked about regarding the old way of thinking? How do we want help? Our way. I want help. I'll be the first one to raise my hand. I want help. But then guess who gets to decide what that help looks like? But guess what the rest of you are saying? I don't think that's going to help you. I see how I think you need help. That's the reality of relationships is this idea of honesty and transparency. And we know that God is exposing us in the midst of all of this. I say in striving with people, Paul's saying, bear one another's burdens. So if you're in relationship with people and you want to help, and somebody is saying, I need help. So you're coming alongside of them to try to help them in that help. I think what I see often is, well, like with what the examples that we've given, like with our neighbor, is number one, I'm saying I'm here in relationship with you, another person, and I'm here for the long haul. I'm not going to bail out on you, even when it gets yucky and not fun. Even when it looks like I bailed on you, I haven't bailed on you. So that's part of our theology, and I think what God gives us as far as biblical understanding of relationship. He's not going to bail on us. He's saying this is for sure. Again, now this is visualized in our relationship with each other. Hey, I'm in this for the long haul, even though sometimes I'm really not going to like you very much. That hasn't happened yet, Greg. Yet. So I'm in it for the long haul, and I'm going to come. I want to come alongside of you, and I'm here to help. Now this person's saying, "Hey, I need your help," and you're saying, "Okay, I'm here to help," but they want help that's different than your help, or you don't have the, whatever happens in there. Especially when we're offering to give help that we think that they need, that they're resisting. Most of the time, what does not happen there? That's right. So this idea of honesty and transparency to say self-disclosure. Hey, I'm struggling, Greg. You asked me for help. I think I'm coming alongside to help, but I feel like you're resisting my help. I feel like you keep pushing me away, whatever it is that's happening within the dynamic. There's real freedom, even though, part of the reason that we don't do that is because we don't think that that's freedom. And so when we now hold back in that self-disclosure and in that honesty, what happens to the relationship? Typically, it feels like a wall is being built. Hold on, Dave he's tired. So, so that's part of the burden too that we place on ourselves. Is I have a certain expectation of deliverance or what should or shouldn't happen in Greg's life and in our relationship. When that doesn't happen, so that's part of the exposure piece that happens with you in this whole dynamic as well. That's right. And you have an expectation of what should or shouldn't happen in that relationship or in that life, and therefore you are at your wit's end. Hey, do you know what I'm finding out more? I mean, at least in the relationships that I am having now, kind of on the formal counseling side. So yeah, I feel the burden. Just a minute, Tracy. I feel the burden that dynamic, right? And especially when somebody is coming to me, I can have a presupposition that they want something from me. They want me to do something. They want me to say something. They want me to help come up with something to help them out with. And you know what I'm finding out more and more? Guess what I'm finding out more and more? That's not the case. Guess what they're wanting? They're wanting a relationship. It is that simplistic idea of they're wanting, even though they're not going in their head, hey, I want somebody to bear my burden with me. They're wanting to they're just wanting another person to relate to them, that they can trust in, there's a relationship going on. And in the midst of that, there's all kinds of tangible things that happen for that person that doesn't take care of their situation. But guess what I'm doing there? I'm going, and that's where I get to the end. It's been really funny especially this last week. I get to the end of our hour and a half, and I'm looking at these people going, okay, so what do you want from me? I mean, I might not say it like that. Sometimes I do, depending on the relationship, but it's more like, so what? Self-disclosure. Hey, I might be a little confused. What would you like me to do? Lately it's been, I don't want you to do anything. It's helpful just sitting here talking to you about it. The whole time I'm sitting there going, and I thought I've learned that. The whole time I'm sitting there trying to figure out, okay, what do write notes and I'm trying. Yes, I understand the listening part, and I'm trying to connect with them, and knowing that listening is a very important thing. But I'm also trying to think, okay, what kind of thing can I put together here that might be helpful here? I get to the end and I go, what might be helpful here? This is helpful. That's where you get to the marriage dynamics of just listen to me. I just want to talk to you. Yeah, and that's the big theology behind it, and that's actually where I wanted to go this morning. Is that's where you really get freedom. God is doing what he's doing. I don't even know what dots need to be connected. And I can have the freedom to know that he's doing that, and he's going to do it through our relationship, and he's going to do it through this stuff. So again, you can have reactions to go, okay, hey, look, I can't save anybody. I can't deliver anybody. I can't do any of that. So therefore, none of this takes place. I'm saying there can be purposeful stuff take place that isn't for that purpose. It's for this purpose of coming alongside of people. And that, look, even when I do that with another person, it's helping me too. Okay, so incarnate ministry, having the connection with the relationship, that people desiring that, and especially with our understanding of theology, connecting that, being purposeful about that. And then I'm saying this to get it on the recording, and then to make the connection with the activity piece, right? Or the action piece. And what I thought of was the honesty piece, especially when we're in a helping situation. The honesty piece that when I'm in that situation, whether it be with formal counseling or just a friend, and friend Jeff is saying, I need help, and we've got the relational going on. So Jeff's saying, hey, look, I just want to connect. I just want to talk, okay? And I'm seeing something blaring in Jeff, especially in the situation or whatever, in which I'm thinking that there's something that can be done, or something that at least should be said, that can help expose at least what I am seeing. So that activity piece, it could spur into, I say that that's activity in and of itself, is this idea of honesty and transparency in the relationship, to be able to say something or whatever, something that you're thinking. Right. And when I talk about transparency and giving feedback to a person in that situation, That's what I'm thinking. Is this Godward reality that this is Godward? And really, where I wanted to go this morning was as I started to go into Proverbs, and it's this idea of, so when I think about that, so Proverbs is talking consistently about the foolish person and the wise, and talking about wisdom and instruction and understanding. And what is tied in Proverbs consistently is the concept, again, of what we talked about before. If you separate out wisdom and instruction as merely just information, apart from the relationship and the person and work of Jesus Christ, then you've missed the whole point. And what happens, and what I believe that you see in Proverbs as well, and definitely throughout all the rest of Scripture, is that wisdom and instruction is entirely coordinated with or tied together with, like the Gordian knot, with what? Relationship and feedback of other people. Exactly what you were just talking about. You know how many times, I don't know how many times, it was going to be one of those confusing questions. Maybe I'll try to count them. Talking about the wise person and how they receive instruction and wisdom from other people in Proverbs is over and over and over again. So we're not just talking about some magical, mystical wisdom that comes from God. Again, that's what we tend, especially in the American evangelical Protestant world, is we separate this idea that my relationship is just between me and God, or my relationship with God is just between me and God. So I sit in my closet, hid away from other people, struggling with my stuff, and I just keep on asking God for wisdom, instruction, help, and it's never tied to the relationship with other people. Over and over again, instruction, wisdom, understanding in Proverbs is tied to what is given and received from other people. It's both and. You and I just had that conversation this week, and the example is the idea of Moses in the Old Testament. Remember how Moses was set up as a judge, a person in which the people came to him and I need help, and he made decisions for them. Okay? So there's the aspect that I have nothing and I can only point to God in that help, and people are looking to me not to be God for them, but to say, tell me what to do. Before, I would have had a terrible reaction to that. Now I'm saying, I can see that there's profit in that. We got to stop. But what I wanted to highlight in Proverbs is kind of what Barbara was talking about. But you guys know what Proverbs says. So what is the beginning of wisdom? Say it louder. The fear of the Lord. And I will count that one to see how many times it says that in Proverbs alone. So you guys know that. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And so especially, what? Oh, of the Lord. It's implied. The fear of, that's the most important word there. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And so we'll wait for that now next week. It's the beginning of knowledge. The fear of the Lord, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And then the contrast is folly and foolishness. And I'm seeing how more and more that the folly and foolishness is talking about, again, the idea of the fruit of a frustrated sovereign is folly. But yet the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So as we talked about Job and Jonah, and I think Jeff the other Friday night talked about Joseph, the basis of everything that happens in those stories, as far as the redemption that God gives those people, all had everything to do with this. And I say fear, but I think that's a comprehensive word that is talking about the understanding of how God works in everything. Yeah, and you say terrifying, but again, I say it's a comprehensive word. It can be both negative and positive words, as far as it confronts the essence of my autonomy. So the actual his existence and the belief of his existence demolishes my view of autonomy. And it helps me to rethink everything, or facilitates that. Leonard, and then we got to leave. We got to stop. That's right. And you say that because the fear of the Lord and that understanding of his sovereignty, his existence, is aligned exactly with the word trust in Proverbs. So you have the fear of the Lord as the beginning of wisdom, and then you guys know the other main. Where is it? I just had it. Trust. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Proverbs chapter 3. So the idea of fear and understanding and believing that God even exists is totally aligned with trust. And it contrasts the foolishness and folly of me thinking, I am my creator, in essence. Good. Let me pray. Dear God, I thank you for giving us your words and your life, your Son. I thank you, Lord God, that it isn't just mere information that you give us, Lord, but it's yourself. And I pray that you would help us to understand that and believe that more and more, not just in a pure informational sense, but in a relational sense, Lord, by believing better and more of who you are and what you've done for us, and how you visualize that in our own relationships and the redemption that you provide to us just even on a daily basis. We thank you for your love, and be with us the rest of the service, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.